sometimes that's where there can be some, bad, representation of what accountants can be, because I'm sure everybody has met that type somewhere along the way.
Yeah,
and they do exist. But I actually think as technology modernizes, as the demands of businesses get greater and the introduction of automation, and, I don't know what AI is going to do in the accounting world, but automation is definitely taking out some of those entry-level jobs.
Yeah, the data inputting type role, isn't
Exactly.
it? AI will undoubtedly replace that aspect of it.
And you see it now where, you can create duplications of invoices without even having to do anything. That's happening right now.
Yeah.
And I do wonder actually how people progress in the accounting field, just because, when I left school, I cut my teeth on having to print invoices, stamp them, write them, get them signed, move them over. Like, I couldn't even imagine wanting to do that job now, And so when young people are coming through that, again, were born in the digital era, they're like, you want me to do what? You mad?
Want me to work hard?
Sorry, you want me to print paper? Sure. And I think this is one of the joys of working with young people, because there's this one individual that I can think of that was like, there must be an app for that. That can't be a real job.
That's the approach, isn't it? It must be an app.
I'll tell you what, I'll find it. I'll spend half a day finding the technology so I don't have to do this. I'm like, that's bloody brilliant.
I was going to say, what a great idea. Though.
Exactly. And I think that's where sometimes it's really interesting going into different accounts departments. And what is that mix? What does it look like?
Yeah.
Because you also then find people that have just been thrown into an accounts job because, they've got a bit of now, so they'll work it out. And actually, they're just doing processes and they have no idea what they're doing, but they know how to do the process.
Yeah. Just going back to AI, actually, one thing I've seen and thought about is that you have a finance team and you've had someone that's been doing the same thing years and years. There's no problem, doing well, good job. The thought of AI and what that means, I think it holds them back sometimes from using technology, because the fear of, hang on, will I still have a job?
Yeah, that kind of protectionism.
Protection, And I think, I have seen that in a number of larger clients where they're still quite manual, might have a software, but they're doing things in quite a manual way with it. And straight away there's quicker ways to do it.
Yeah.
But the key person isn't pushing for that.
No.
It's got to be job protection, I suppose, to a certain extent.
And I think it comes back to that, if you give somebody X amount of hours to do X amount of jobs, they will just make it fit.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think sometimes we get stuck in that position of could we do more with less? And that comes back to that protectionist thing. But actually it's like, wouldn't you want to do more interesting stuff?
Exactly that, yeah.
Isn't there things that interest you? Because surely, counting the petty cash every month cannot be bringing you joy.
Yeah, exactly. We moved someone onto Xero a little while ago, a few months ago really, and they were using, I can't actually think what the system was, but it was a very old convoluted system. Very sort of manual based within the system.
Yeah.
You couldn't post journals or there's so much you couldn't do with it. It was a nightmare. And there were always a lot of mistakes in it, just because it was so hard to actually work out what to do.
Yeah.
Moved them onto Xero, and the lady that's doing it, she just sort of said to me, like, I can't believe how much less time I'm spending on it.
Yeah.
The amount of time it has saved just from moving on to something like that and just automating a lot of the processes.
And even things like sheer space that you need.
Yeah, exactly.
You walk into some offices and they're wall to wall with these arch lever folders going back to the 80s sometimes.
That can be scanned in.
Exactly, it can be dragged, it can be dropped.
Exactly.
You can actually go and find it. You don't have to go into a lock-up room.
We love that from a sort of accounts preparation point of view, because obviously we have an office, and over, in the past, clients have dropped their records in. So we have a box of lever arch files and records for a client. We have another one there. And now there's so few records that come in. And actually, when we come to do an accountancy job on something like one of these accountancy softwares, and we want to know what an invoice is, we click on it, it's there. It's amazing. It's so good.
Yeah.
And that paper is now not being stored somewhere.
I know when I started my business and you recommended Xero to me, it was just like the best piece of advice ever, because having worked with lots of different packages, I was just like, oh, this is so easy.
It's so easy.
This
It's
is so
intuitive,
lovely.
isn't it?
Exactly. And it's intuitive. That's a perfect word for describing Xero, because I'm a big fan of it.
Ironically, QuickBooks is QuickBooks Intuit.
Yes.
It's not intuitive.
Interestingly, and again, obviously this is not sponsored by any of the accounting packages out there, but interestingly, everybody I know that does use QuickBooks hates QuickBooks.
Yeah.
And
we
there
see so many move from QuickBooks to Xero.
And there's almost like this rivalry of, is it QuickBooks or is it Xero? And, you know, I suppose if you are watching this and you're unsure, it is Xero. There is no other answer. And that's the one thing we'll be quite firm about here.
Well, I said that to Emma in the first place. So.
Yeah. And I took the advice and my accounts are lovely. Marty's just signed them off.
Very good. Very good. Top marks.